Unfiltered. Like you're in another world, like you zoned out. You know what I'm saying?
Hello, welcome to
Hi.
Unfiltered with Georgii Speakman. Today's guest is Felicia Loewy. She is a fashion entrepreneur and also beautiful mummy to 18-month-old Cash. So she's been very busy balancing all the things business, entrepreneurship, and ownership, fashion entrepreneurship, and motherhood. With nearly a 20-year career in fashion, sales, marketing, and brand development. Felicia's career kicked off in New York's fashion district, and in 2018, she found and launched Assembly Line, which I was a lucky participant in quite a few years ago now, but we'll get to that later. So, Assembly Line is a fashion consulting agency that is working with emerging labels and designers in branding, business strategy, and wholesale expertise. And now and today, Felicia is also still working with a lot of designers and helping, female fashion entrepreneurs and all the rest launch their brands, businesses, and, maintain their incredible presence in industry. So welcome to the show today, babe.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I've been quite curious to just dive in and learn more about your whole transition and journey, which I'm sure a lot of women can appreciate because oh my God, we launch these amazing careers, we have these incredible careers, and all of a sudden we have this massive change, which is motherhood.
Yep.
And so, you've been so busy working and contributing to the industry, not only here in Atlanta, but in other markets as well. Tell us a little bit about not only just the business, but what that transition has been like for you.
Honestly say I'm not managing both. It's a challenge every day, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard too that it's not I really have to take it day by day, and that's really what I've been able
Yeah.
to do. I had my child at 39, so I waited, as long as I thought I possibly could wait to have a child. If I could have waited 5 more years, I would have.
Yeah.
But
For
it was
another
the time,
10.
and I was like, let's do it. And me and my husband were ready. We had been in a great relationship financially. We had a home. We were both good with work, and we were like, okay, let's do it. We're blessed that we were able to kind of control that timing. And we had a child, and what I realize now is, as many know, that social media paints this picture of everything's so easy and so beautiful, and having a child is the most beautiful experience. And when it isn't, you feel guilty. Like, is it me? Am I ungrateful? Can I feel horrible complaining, or if I've had a challenge, or if I'm not enjoying this process as I thought I would, you feel horrible. And it's really, really challenging, mentally, absolutely physically, trying to navigate, baby postpartum blues, baby blues and postpartum depression, and a lot of things that we don't speak about. Not to mention the fact that as entrepreneurs, we don't get maternity leave. There is no break. There is no,
Right.
yes, you can take 6 months off. I had a friend that was, I think, 4 weeks after me, and she had paid maternity leave for 6 months. And I was like,
Wow.
that is a
And
dream,
that's
a
unheard of in
dream.
America too.
So
Yeah.
unheard of. And even
Yeah.
sometimes they have paid leave, where it may be a percentage, and all of those things would have been amazing for us. My husband got 2 weeks paternity leave. I had a C-section. We were in the hospital for 4 days. So he technically had 5 business days with me at home. That's not, there's not enough time, for us to transition to the biggest change of our entire
Totally.
life. And we had to take, vacation time for him to stay home for a month. So it's just really unrealistic, or really surprised on the experience and the negative part of it.
Oh yeah.
While our baby
Yeah.
is such an amazing blessing, and it's, again, hard to complain. There are so many things that we weren't ready for or realized how difficult it would be. And the number one thing was childcare. And being an entrepreneur, and me not being able to physically be present and emotionally be present, and not be worrying about a business, but also trying to pump my milk and make sure my baby's okay. And then, trying to be a friend and a mom and a wife and an entrepreneur. And it's
All
like,
the
you
things.
cannot do it all.
And you didn't
And we
even
just,
mention yourself there, like even in that
I did.
list, you're like, and then and then me, like, what about me? You didn't even, because it comes last, right?
It's really interesting. And I, was working at home. Me and my husband were both worked from home, and having the baby in the house, we were like, we'll be fine. We'll figure out childcare. He'll be home with us. And like immediately a month in, we're like, this is way more difficult than we thought it would be, like being able to deal with the nap time and not nap time.
I've
And if I
heard
had a
that.
call and my husband had a call at the same time, and we didn't have childcare arranged because we didn't think that it
Hmm.
was this, urgent thing in the beginning. So we had the support in the month. Then as the months got on, he gets more mobile. And so it got more challenging. And not to mention the cost of childcare and then the quality of childcare. And it's like, all of these things that you don't really consider of how much support you need, between cleaning your
Hmm.
home, cooking fresh meals. Like it just becomes unbearable. The load is so unbearable. But then I think there's single moms that do this every day. My mother did it with 4 children and, had a job. And it's just like, I compare myself often of like, why am I challenged and why is this so difficult? Um, and I'm
No, you're
still
not
going through
alone.
that. Yeah, and
You
I've
are
realized
not.
that now a lot. I
Yeah,
think it's millennial moms too, like our age, we're like, like so traumatized by this. But we know that there's so many amazing women that go out there and they suffer in silence. And I don't mean suffer, but really struggle in silence of dealing with all of these challenges. And from the outside, you're like, they have it together. They look so great on social media and they're always put together with hair and makeup and their baby pictures are great. And you're like, when you're in it, you're like, this is not real. This is not the mom who I thought I would be. I'm not as organized, I don't get to go work out. And so it's a really big challenge. I say all of this, and this has nothing to do with being an entrepreneur. This is just being a mom. And it's been really challenging for me in this past, it's not even been 2 years yet.
Well, I want to first off congratulate you for being so brave for even sharing that, because you're right about all the things. And I think that it's not that people are trying to necessarily deliberately to paint some perfect image all the time on social media. It's just that if you're going to be posting beautiful memories and
That's it.
experiences, you're naturally going to post the beautiful moments, of
Best part.
course, because
Right.
that's what I do with travel and other bits and pieces, because for me, I love to capture those moments, and you're going to do the same. Anyone's going to do the same with these things, particularly kids and all the rest, birthdays,
Right.
cute moments, all the rest. But you're right, like obviously there's a hell of a lot more going on behind the scenes. And
Yep.
as an entrepreneur, motherhood does intrinsically intertwine with your efforts as an entrepreneur. And you're not alone. I've had so many women, like female friends, that have had kids that turned to me and said, if you don't have to, or if you don't really want to do it, don't do it. Don't fucking do it. Like, don't get kids,
It
because
is.
it's
Yeah.
literally just so hard, and lives change and all the things, and also the body part, like bodies change, the hormones, all the things, and it's like, how do I gather these pieces of myself back from energy, motivation, whatever, to put myself back together as a puzzle piece. So
Hmm.
I have to talk to Assembly Line on that note, because you were very gracious and grateful for giving me the opportunity to go through that incredible process that you and your team had created. And I was kind of like a bit of a guinea pig, for lack of a better term, but I was a earlier stage client for a particular process that you had crafted and sort of streamlined. And I know that it was like an evolved sort of process that you had curated as part of the services for Assembly Line.
Yep.
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was incredible. You guys did an amazing job. And, that was really just for merch for my record label. If I was a serious designer, obviously I can imagine that process is just so invaluable. So,
Mhm.
tell us about how you curated the process and the procedures behind it all, and the bits and pieces that have so well crafted uh, Assembly Line and everything that it stands for.
Yeah. So I actually, looking back in my career, I never graduated college thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur. It was really not a goal. I knew I would always be in fashion, and I went to school for fashion merchandising. I did my internship in a sales agency in New York, and I just went straight in to sales
Mhm.
and worked in the industry for many years. And while I was doing my process, managing and dealing with sales with brands, I met a lot of designers, and you get to learn their flaws. And the challenges as a sales rep when I'm representing a brand and maybe they can't produce because they didn't have enough funds, or they had to cancel things because they couldn't actually get enough orders for a product. All of those challenges affected our sales, and our commissions and everything in the roles that I was in. But I also saw them struggling, and a lot of people came to me and said, hey, I would love your representation. I'm ready. And I would give them, an overview and really kind of an audit and say, hey, you're not ready though. You don't have your website, social media presence. You don't have line sheets. You don't have,
Yeah.
so as a sales rep, I
You
can't
need-
take
yeah.
on your product if you're not ready. So I really thought, like, if I tell these people no, where are they going? Like, who helps them? Who gives them the resources that they need? Who connects them? Who gives them that one photo shoot that makes a big difference, right? Because they have a beautiful product. They're really talented, but they need just a little magic wand, just a little help. And so that's really where my focus started to go towards, and my passion became, in general, I'm a connector and I share resources, and that's just who I am as a person. So that's really where the idea and concept came for assembly line, and thinking like, if you're building a car, you go through the same process. It's the exact same process. It goes through the line. You have experts along the process. They do one part of the process, they move on to the next, and at the end you have a beautiful, shiny, perfect, model. So that's really the idea, and why I named it assembly line was because no matter what product you're building, you still have to go through the same process. So over the time while we were taking on clients, it started with just me in the beginning, and I was outsourcing with different experts. And I always told all my clients, I'm not the expert at everything, but I'm the expert at finding the expert. So I would connect with other people in the industry and make sure, that I supported them in their expertise. I stayed in my lane and really served as like a general contractor and helping the clients get to all of the resources and experts that they needed. So as I was outsourcing a lot of the things, we started to build our own team internally and start serving more services internally. So that's really the idea and the concept and how assembly line was born.
No, it's brilliant. And when I had come across your business by default through one of your employees at the time that I was living in the same neighborhood as, it just all unfolded organically. I was like, this is fucking great, because even having lived in LA for nearly 8 years, working on so many different campaigns that often involved like, fashion brands, labels, whatever, and then going to a lot of manufacturing, like warehouses, and understanding a bit of that process out of LA, you need to have literally the assembly line to get things properly done.
In the right order too.
Come again?
In the right order too, because a lot of
In
people
the
make
right
mistakes
order, yeah.
doing
And that's what
step 6 instead of step 1, 2, 3. So that's what we found a lot of our challenges with our clients.
But massive kudos to you, because that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is actually finding out what is needed from an infrastructure development standpoint in a business. I mean, it doesn't always necessarily have to jump to a paid campaign. You might have to follow 15 steps before getting to that step. And obviously, a lot of budding creators or business founders or whatever might not be aware of necessarily all the steps, particularly if their business has started with an idea. And so that's where, the value and assembly line and all the rest obviously plays an instrumental role. And I love that. But you've launched the business out of Atlanta off the back of a lot of this experience and knowledge you've had in New York. What have you found the pros and cons of the Atlanta market from a fashion standpoint? And I know you've spent a lot of time traveling to other markets to bridge the gaps between service offerings and all the rest, to even like fill in different price points or different solutions. How has that whole process unfolded for you? Talk to some of that and some of the challenges, pros, cons.
Well, one of the things I was most motivated about with starting the agency in Atlanta is that, traditionally New York and LA are the epicenters for fashion in our country. And that is where fashion districts are, where you buy fabric, where you actually manufacture.
Yeah.
And that is something that Atlanta is lacking. And even when I started my own business, being able to talk to someone that helped me file a LLC and like actually get my branding done, like you have to hire so many different people. And it's like, wouldn't it be amazing if we could call one person in one agency and they help us through the whole process? So we absolutely were hand holding our clients through all of these.
Yes.
And what I found was our partners were great with actually manufacturers, because they would get all these calls from designers, and designers don't know what they're doing, or they're not ready, and they're like, I have so many people that I would send you because they're not ready for us. And our job was to get them ready for the manufacturing process and then actually hold their hand through it. So through
Yeah.
that, I was able to connect not only nationwide, but also find resources even in Mexico that we were able to support our designers with getting product development done, factories that were affordable, that were nearshoring, which we all know what's happening right now in our environment of tariffs, and the pandemic showed us really how weak we are in our infrastructure for actual manufacturing. So I have been a very big supporter of nearshoring, and even just moving production even to South America, to Central America, Mexico, and
Awesome.
US. So that is something that
Yeah.
I've been very passionate about, and I have been able to actually actively work on that with my clients and giving them an alternative, option, and saying, Asia is amazing, right? And we are used to getting things fast and cheap. But as you deal with shipping issues, the pandemic taught us that if anything shuts down, then you're not getting your products. And by the time you pay all the tariffs, the shipping, and the time, you can get your stuff made across the border in Mexico. So
Right.
that is something that I really was really huge on supporting. I actually added a team member that was based in Guadalajara. She managed all of our production clients. We were dealing with all of our clients at that time were actually just working in Mexico. They were all happy to hop on a flight to see the factories. It was just such an easy transition from people that were working with Asia and finding, wow, I can get quality done. So I traveled a lot extensively through Mexico, between Guadalajara specifically, and Atlanta with my clients. So it was really, really exciting time that I got to build that
For
bridge.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have visited Mexico on a few occasions, and I just think it's one of the most incredible countries and incredibly perhaps undervalued, but certainly
Yes.
underrated for those that are not like super familiar with the rapid growth of Mexico City and surrounding cities and towns,
Yep.
but the unbelievable taste, style, design, and craftsmanship, from like architecture to just art in general
Mhm.
to you name it. It really is an incredible country and market. So kudos to you for tapping into all of that to either, yeah, cross pollinate like services, solutions, and all the rest. But
What I
I'm
was most
curious.
interested, what I found the most surprising is that as I was working in Mexico, I found that Mexican designers, the same, were like, we need help. We want to get to the US. And as I traveled to
Mhm.
different trade shows and the markets here, I realized how much support they needed as well. Like they weren't understanding, how to export. They weren't ready for export. They didn't understand wholesale structure. They didn't understand
Mhm.
wholesale pricing. So it was really interesting
Yeah,
crossing the border this way, that people were asking for support on the other way as well. So over the
absolutely.
years, it's been 8 years now, and I've made so many great connections with, again, experts in the industry that I lean on to for our clients, so that they are, at any point, if a client needs something, either I can do it, our agency can do it, or we have a referral for them, so that
Mhm.
they're not left, searching for somebody and getting taken advantage of or losing money in their process. So I think a lot is going to shift um, as this new age of like slowing down from fast fashion, this tariff issues that we're having, and then even just expanding the offerings in nearshoring and making sure that people are not overproducing too, and getting back to really
Mm.
building our infrastructure for our industry.
Absolutely. I love that. We've obviously both lived in different cities. I grew up, I like to say, in LA and largely New York too, coming to America. You've spent a lot of time in New York. We are both aware that Atlanta is a growing city. We've got the development
Mhm.
of the Beltline, we've got the World Cup coming here next year. There has been, largely a mass exodus from a lot of cities, and obviously a lot of people poured into different cities like, the Carolinas, Miami, Austin, wherever, from some of these larger cities. We've at one point pegged as the fourth fastest growing real estate scene, tech scene, and all the rest. And to your point, the obvious markets for fashion have been LA and New York, perhaps New York in particular. What challenges have you faced in the Atlanta market, and or what growth opportunities are you seeing? What differences in markets are you seeing? And what are your kind of hopes for Atlanta as it's going through its ongoing sort of growth phases and evolution?
Yeah, Atlanta is a very unique place. I think the biggest challenge that we've had is
Say that
really the resources.
again. Sorry.
The biggest challenge I think is really the resources that we have directly in our city for apparel. We don't have product development and manufacturing like in as many as options LA or New York. So if I'm working with a client that wants to do US options, we're going to have to go somewhere outside of Atlanta. It's not really easy for us to find a product development firm or a factory that's going to be able to do their products. So that is a challenge. But I do think that we have a very unique city, and a lot of brands are very interested in our market. As you can see from all of the fashion news, luxury is, as we know, coming down, and I don't think it will be that way forever, but right now we are on the rise of emerging brands, and people have more exposure. We can see brands all over the world, and we're such a connected world these days with social media, and the impact has made it even better and easier for emerging brands to be successful. We've seen people that have no experience at all in fashion, and they can grow multi-million dollar brands because of
Yeah.
their influence, and because of their reach online. So I think that it is unique in that way, that there's a lot of on-demand brands now that you can actually buy something and then it's made, and so it's lower risk for emerging designers. So in general, I think that there's a lot of opportunity just in the way we connect, and emerging brands are getting more opportunities. And Nordstrom is doing collabs with Harlem Fashion Row, and these types of collaborations are something that we've never seen before, and usually was only a space for the luxury markets, and high-end fashion is what people were talking about. But now it's a lot more, there's a lot more room and opportunity for emerging designers. So I think even with Atlanta, just the things that have happened in the brands, and the World Cup, and Porsche North America moving there, and all of these companies becoming the headquarter there, it's only a
Yeah.
matter of time that we'll continue to add opportunity for fashion. Right now it's still very much a secret, kind of segregated space in our city. I don't feel like we have one center of
Sure.
gravity. We don't have one organization. Like, there is still a spot open for that, and hopefully someone steps up and takes the lead on that. But I think that there's a lot of siloed things that are happening in the city. You just have to be able to kind of connect in that way. But over 20 years, I have not seen any one organization be able to support and give those resources. So Assembly Line has been great, and we've been able to connect with a lot of people in our city. But it is, I think there's a lot to come for sure. I don't know if you've seen any of speaking of World Cup, all of the things that Adidas was doing was so amazing to me. I was fortunate to work on the Anthony Edwards campaign in the fall, and I was actually on the styling team. And Adidas was like, well, it's so easy to come here. Anthony Edwards is from here. And they did their entire series, which is one of the highest viewed campaigns they've done on social media.
Wow.
It was made in
Incredible.
Atlanta, and it's just
Yeah.
amazing to see something like Adidas come there and be able to do that. Same
Yeah.
with Athlete's Foot, and Athlete's Foot just launched a shoe. Happy 404 Day, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Happy 414,
Happy
babe.
404 Day.
We should be
They
blazing.
yeah, they did a collab with an Adidas shoe, and it's like that's the power of like collaboration. I know Nike is opening an office, or has already been opened an office in West Midtown, and I think Stitch Fix has an office located, I think, in Austell, where they do a lot of their photography. A lot of these brands are coming to Atlanta, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm excited to see what the next even 5 years holds for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's the statement Atlanta influences everything. And they obviously are referring to from a cultural standpoint. And it's I had the opportunity to work on over 100 brand campaigns when I was running my business Outlier out of LA, different influencer situations, having worked with all those brands, Foot Locker, New Balance, Adidas, Nike, a lot of the lifestyle brands, but also major corporates and stuff as well. And I've wondered if there's as much of that going on in Atlanta, but it sounds like, in your opinion, it's starting to happen. But what do you think about that statement? Is when Atlanta influences everything, is that more of a statement? Is it true just to the Atlanta market? Do you feel that that's felt or slowly being felt by other cities as well?
I do think so. I think we have been known first and foremost for music. And I think that has transitioned now into film. I think fashion will follow that, but really the film, what has happened with film in the past, just 5 years has been incredible with the opening of
Mm-hmm.
Universal Studios and Assembly Studios over in Chambly.
Mm-hmm.
They have wardrobes rentals now. That is insane. We have that much studio work happening and that many major productions happening that we now have a wardrobe rental department.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really exciting to see what's happening behind the scenes with film specifically. So there's so many things you'll watch, whether it be commercials or, the Ford commercial that you just watched or a Marvel
Yeah,
movie, and they're all filmed in Atlanta. So I think
absolutely.
we are influencing it in different segments and industries. And I think tech
Mm-hmm.
also has been really major. I have not
Yeah.
been in tech, but I can see from everything being an entrepreneur, how many opportunities, how many people are supported in tech, and how much that industry has grown as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's nothing that we're not really, taking on as a city as we grow. And
Yeah,
I've
for
seen a lot
sure.
in 20 years. And I feel like the first 10 years was kind of stagnant. The only new thing we had was Atlantic Station, and we were happy. We were happy with our, few places to go. And
Yeah.
Atlantic Mall was okay back in the day. But as we've grown and more people have come in, and the pandemic definitely changed that. And I think quality of
Mm-hmm.
life is so hard to be. And you and I both took
Yes,
advantage of
that
the
part.
housing market. We're homeowners in the city limits,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. And it's really great to see the growth. But I do think we influence. And when I travel around the world, it's music, it's the Atlanta hat. Like, people really do
Yeah.
recognize us
Mm-hmm.
globally. So I'm happy to
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
call
we had the
myself.
writers strikes and all that obviously negatively impacted the market across the country in like totality. But I caught up with a friend that is a partner in a talent management firm from LA the other week, and he was saying that still now like reverted back to 90% of production being outside LA again, and the predominant market is obviously here in Atlanta. And Trillith Studios is actually now the largest studio in all
Wow,
of North America. And I still don't think a lot of people, particularly out of even LA and possibly even here in Atlanta, are even aware of that. We're literally home to the largest movie studio in North America
that's
and the
crazy.
largest green screen in the world.
That is
And
so.
if
I
you,
did not know that. And they built a
yeah,
town around the city. Like, have you been
yeah,
down there?
yes,
It's amazing.
I've had a tour through that whole pocket. And Trillitown Town
Amazing.
is gorgeous. You've got filmmakers like Francis Coppola that have purchased a home down there. Apparently, Kanye West owns a home down there. That's apparently where he did spent a lot of time producing his Donda album.
Wow.
Not sure if a lot of people are aware of that, but yeah, there's Trillith Town, which happens to be very expensive, but you can sort of imagine why, because it's not that far from the airport, but developing it out beautifully with gorgeous homes. But it's obviously right next door to this incredible ecosystem, in addition to Assembly Universal of Trillith Studios.
Yep.
So I think, Georgia Entertainment and other groups are really sort of trying to build out a lot of that component. So yeah, to your point, hopefully that will help build out and create opportunities for local entrepreneurs and creatives like yourself. And then trying to build out the entertainment tourism portion of the city as well. We've got untapped opportunities. I heard from someone that they threw out the Marvel set. So instead of holding on to it as an entertainment tourism asset, they threw it
Oh
away. So I think
no.
Atlanta needs to sort of get with the program a little bit more about the power and in what they're creating, because it is a super creative and eclectic city. And I also love to hear about your take and perspective on emerging designers and brands, because we've all loved being able to buy designer brands, but there's just so much fake product on market, and it kind of has
Yep.
destroyed the average Gucci or
Mhm.
YSL or whatever sort of bag item, whatever. What's your take on like all of that? And people are like, I don't want to spend that money. Let me find some gorgeous boutique emerging designer that just happens to have created something that's super high quality and cool as shit.
Right. I
What's
think
your
that's
take on that
that's
whole?
that's the point, is that luxury was this novel, new,
Yeah.
like, exclusive. And so once we've diluted it and mass market,
Mm-hmm.
like Louis Vuitton and YSL belt and shoes, and once that has been more mass market, it doesn't become as exciting to have
Right.
those things. But the
Yeah.
emerging designer that you found on your travels when you went to Africa and
Yeah.
This bag is from some store in Barcelona. Like those storytelling, I think, is really important. And again, more now that we're connected so heavily with social media, and I actually started my career prior to social media. So much has changed with the industry being so quiet and private, and even the way we do wholesale sales, and then influencers going to runway shows. Like it's not even as exciting anymore because the influencer gets to sit in the front row. They are videotaping, collections that are 6 months out. And then, a buyer goes to the store and they're like, no, Rihanna had this outfit. Oh, that's old. I'm like, no, that's not old. She showed it 5 months ago, but now it's in the store. And you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're so used to seeing so much of this. Yeah, we have so much exposure to
Hmm.
the luxury market. So I think that
Hmm.
it's lost its luster. And people are seeing more value in just really, seeking out emerging brands and
Yeah.
building their wardrobes in a different way.
Yeah. So, on that subject, because you're an expert in bringing a lot of these emerging designers and brands to market, what is your advice on how they get started? Like, I don't want you to give away all your gems, but like, what's just some typical advice on how to get started and think about, because obviously creators are creators, and so often they're not thinking about developing infrastructure, process, policy, procedure behind their business, but it's vital to actually achieve that successful
Yep.
assembly line that you've very much craftily created.
The biggest challenge that I've seen and mistake that I've seen that designers make is buying inventory or going straight into production without having consulting first. And so they're so creative, so they'll come to you. And first meetings I have, sometimes they're like, I want to show you my sketches, I want to show you my samples. I'm like, okay, we don't even need to look at that right now. I really need to understand, who are you selling to? Like, what is this brand you're building? And so just getting that part of the process
Right.
done is a challenge for them because they're so
Mhm.
set on the actual creative process and the design that they don't even think through what is the business strategy. And I tell
Right.
them, it's really 10% is design and it's 90% business. So as
Mhm.
much as you spend your, sleepless nights up sketching and sewing and making product and doing photo shoots and putting it on social media, that is a creative part of it, but there's so much more that goes into this, and there is longevity that you have to have. And a lot of times I see that they start to fall off with funding, specifically when it gets to launch, right? We can spend a year developing, we can spend a year
Mhm.
building out who your target market is and all of your, competitor analysis, and really figuring out what is the product that you're building, actually develop it, actually produce it. And then when it comes to marketing at post launch, they're like, how much money do I need? Like, it's really interesting how much, people don't understand or take uh not for granted, but misunderstand our industry of how much it takes to go that gets put into building a brand. So I think
Mhm.
really the biggest advice I have is really hiring an expert, and also doing your research and vetting the people that you're hiring. I've seen so
Mhm.
many people hire consultants, pay up to $30,000 for some samples that they never got, or some
Oh my
consultant that
goodness.
promised they were going to get sales, and they get taken advantage of. So just doing your due diligence, hiring
Right.
experts that have different expertise than you. You can handle
Mhm.
the creative, but really,
Mhm.
really align yourself with someone that can help you with strategy.
Yeah.
The good news is that production, there's so many factories now that you can get things made on demand, literally. Or you can make 6 pieces, you can make 12 pieces. And I'm like, look, no one knows how many units you bought. You buy 12, sell 12. You sold
So
out,
true.
right? You
Yeah.
sold out. You had such a great campaign. You sold out,
Just
right?
start with one.
Start small and really just
Right.
scale from there. No one's asking you
Yeah.
to build an 18-piece collection.
Right.
So I think it's really just take baby steps, grow, and be
Mhm.
patient with the process, because product
Mhm.
development and production is the most frustrating process. Same with IP,
Right.
same when you're building technology. Just understanding that there will be challenges along the way, and that you can't expect a quick return. This is not TikTok, this age of fast, immediate gratification and like instant success is not real when it comes to these brands. Some of them, are influencers, and they have that influence, but you really got to figure out what is the strategy, like what is the long term play here, and how do I get past a TikTok trend and really build a brand that is, has a long time,
Mhm.
a longevity for me and my future.
Are you strictly against fast fashion as a result? Like, where do your principles lie in all of this, knowing that you are your business has been established to literally support emerging designers and do it with, style, grace, quality, all the rest.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, with the clients that I work with, they're not producing fast fashion, so I don't have to use it in my business practices. In general, it's hard to say that I've never, like, I'm so anti fast fashion. I don't buy anything from Zara. Like, I do participate in these retail purchases, but I
Yeah.
do also support the change and the evolution in what's happening in our industry. And I
Hmm.
try to get all of my clients to make these sustainable,
Hmm.
decisions that help their business in the long run. The
Hmm.
biggest thing for me, what I love the most, is actually going to factories. And that is something that's really important to me. And, the True Cost documentary, if you haven't seen it, is amazing and very eye opening for anyone, even if you're not in fashion, just to understand the detrimental effects that the industry has on our environment and
Mm.
socially, and even to the labor wages, like, and really understanding why is this campaign such a big deal. Watch the True Cost. The filmmaker was actually based from Snellville, Georgia, really small town north of Georgia.
Oh, wow.
I mean, north of Atlanta, and that's where he's from. But that documentary really helps open your eyes of understanding this industry that we're in. Um, but really, the factory part of it was what I was most excited about, and going to Mexico and physically doing the tours and
Hmm.
seeing, hey, this
Yes.
is where these people are working. They have
Connecting.
they're provided lunch every day. It's clean facility. They're paid well. Like, that
Mm.
really was important to me. So it is really, while I'm not like I don't purchase from Shein and all of these other crazy fast fashion places. I have absolutely shopped in some of the stores like Zara. But I
Hmm.
do in my business make sure that sustainability and really transparency in the production of the apparel is
Yes.
what is important to us and our clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously an increasing amount of people that care more and more about the environment these days. And so, how do you advise people on the sustainability piece and portion? And when designers do want to have a sustainable brand and source, organic products and all the rest, like, is that just 50,000 times more expensive and more challenging, or is it becoming easier and easier these days?
It's becoming easier because we have so many vendors that allow you to purchase lower quantities. So what I tell my clients is, while
Hmm.
you think sustainability is a great trending selling word, you have to be 10 toes down. You can't launch the brand and say, we're
Hmm.
eco-conscious, we're not eco-conscious, but we're eco-friendly, we're sustainable, and then you ship everything in a poly mailer because they were cheaper. Like, you
Right.
cannot, you
Right.
have to decide where you want to launch with. And what I tell them
Mhm.
is, open with, we're eco-conscious. We're making the efforts to be a sustainable brand by X date, right? It may not be something that you can afford to do in the beginning, but you also can't, say you want sustainability and then I show you the quotes for recycled poly bags, or
Mhm.
recycled bags made of, they're compostable, or the poly bag from China, and you're like, oh, okay, let's go with the poly bag from China. Like, that doesn't mean that we're a sustainable brand. So you can't do it for trendy reasons. You really have to make sure that it's something that you are going to have embedded in your brand ethos, and then also in
Right.
all of the ways that you actually market your brand. And you have to be truthful. People definitely can see through that. You can't say we're eco-friendly and then send that poly mailer and people are looking at the five plastic bags they, just discarded to open your product. So
Right.
it's really something that I I want to say I talk clients out of, but I just have a better conversation with them and make sure that they're being realistic about what it is they want to do. I've had
That's
one
awesome.
client that actually did it, and was doing it, but their messaging was eco-conscious because they said, if I have to make a decision financially, I don't want to have to backtrack that. So I would rather say that we're eco-conscious and do everything in our power to reduce waste in everything that we do. So, but it's definitely more
Amazing.
reasonable
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, especially when there's budgets and finance involved. I mean, you can't always just necessarily always opt in for the most expensive choice or option every
Right.
5 seconds. If you have to compromise on that, that makes a lot of sense for sure. And so you've been working on these amazing campaigns, Adidas or Adidas, however you want to pronounce it, around the world. Um, obviously is a brand everybody's familiar with. I'm sure that there are a lot of aspiring stylists and those in the fashion world that would love to understand more of like what happens behind the scenes. what really goes on behind all of this and the work that that's involved to really bring these campaigns to life. So could you share some insights around the processes that you've been a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that was eye-opening to me, a dear friend of mine is a stylist, Meta, mutual connection between you and I.
Yeah.
She's an amazing expert in the industry and brought me on to one of her projects, and I was blown away by the process. You get
Mm,
to see a 15-second reel and you're like, oh, this is amazing, but the amount of production that goes
right.
into it is astounding, and the money that goes into it. And more importantly, the amount of people that are in the decision-making process is really incredible to see, because you do have, the brand who is usually the client, then there's an agency that is really hired to do all creative direction, and then there's a production company, and through the production company is where styling team is hired. So between all of those levels, you're like, there's so many people in the room making decisions on if that shoe looks great. So while the stylist is amazing and expert and can put the looks together, at the end of the day, the client is the one who actually makes the decision. But there's also the producer and the director's feedback, and then there's the client who is in the room, and then there may be the creative agency who has a vision.
Yeah.
So really seeing, it reminds me of the Devil Wears Prada episode, scene where she was talking about belts, and she was like, I don't know, they're just belts, and they're like, all of those people were in the
Absolutely
room,
not. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
saying that I think of often when I'm on set, and I'm like, wow,
That's
this is so
funny. Yeah.
crazy to see how many people touch these decisions for this
Mm-hmm.
15-second commercial or
Mm-hmm.
60-second commercial that you see on TV. A lot has gone behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of prep before, but really the shoot day is usually 1 to 3 days max, depending on how long your production is and what you're doing. But I love it. It's really fun, fast paced, and so it's a different side of the industry, but it's really interesting, and thankful for these opportunities, especially because Atlanta is now home to so many different productions that are happening. So brands you would never imagine are doing their own shoots right in Atlanta. So
Oh, I
a lot of fun.
really hope to continue to see the growth of that, because when I
Yep.
moved here, God, is it nearly 5 years ago now, in June or July this year, which is wild. There really wasn't a lot happening from those like big campaigns
Yeah.
where, yeah, you've got the multi partners involved. But I think people are starting to realize that Atlanta is home to some incredible talent, which obviously includes yourself and the likes of Meta and lots of others that are, contributing to the industry. And
Yep.
then we've got all the facilities here now. So like, why wouldn't you make it happen when it's probably going to cost a quarter of the price that it would in
Yeah.
an LA or New York, which is
Right.
awesome. So, what other things are you working on, and what other things are you really looking forward to, and how are you hoping to continue to make a difference in the Atlanta market in all things and frameworks of fashion?
Yeah, still doing assembly line projects. I'm much more selective on those clients now. When I was
Mm.
had more of a full team, I'm very thin these days since I had a baby. I've definitely stepped back and really, taking on bigger projects that are longer term than a lot of smaller projects. So at the
Hmm.
time we were having, anywhere from 10 to 15 different projects at once. Now I'm able to slow down and take 1 to 2 clients that really need a lot more of my attention. So I have one client that we've been working on for 2 years, which is amazing, that it's going to be launching finally next month. So that one's actually produced in New York. I'm really excited about that one. It's
Awesome.
actually a celebrity brand, so really
Mhm.
happy because it's going to be well received, I think, by the industry. She's amazing,
Awesome.
and has a great following. So I'm really excited about this launch happening
Congrats.
next month. And then doing some more work with Meta. I'm really excited about the production. It's been a really busy season. We're really happy that, we get to work together as friends, and, I'm blessed to have these opportunities. But the biggest focus lately has really been getting Cash, in school, and figuring out, now that he's a toddler, like balancing making sure he's okay and like fitting him in our schedules. So that's what I have been working on, trying to figure out how to do both.
And you do a lot of travel, which is awesome. I think that's another great advantage of Atlanta. It's such an easy city to travel from, just with the close proximity to other cities and markets and all the rest. How does Cash do with travel? Do you see a little traveler spirit in him, or is he like, What's going on, Mum? Why are we on another plane?
Well, his first flight was at 4 months. We took him to Paris for Christmas. So like
I
we started off
remember
high.
that was like a 24-hour trip, right?
Yeah, we were like, this was a bad idea. Like, what were we thinking? We were so jet lagged. He slept the whole flight. It was an 8-hour flight. He slept 7 of the 8 hours.
Wow,
A
that's
perfect
incredible.
angel. We were like, okay, this is amazing. And now I know why parents are like, oh, travel when they're young. I'm like, now I get the difference. Toddlers don't want to sit still. They want to get up. They want to climb the seat or tap the people in front of them. Like they just don't have the bandwidth
Right.
to deal with a trip to Europe. So we have done a lot more trips to Mexico still for my work. And they're much shorter trips, but he is very active. So we hope that he takes naps. We're lucky if he takes a nap. I travel often to Mexico City too for some client work.
That's awesome.
And so that flight's only like 3.5 hours. So it's not too bad.
Mhm.
We try to time our schedules like when it will either be a nap time or like we know we can get in and out of this plane without a lot of drama. But he's 18 months and, you know, wants to say hi to everybody and walk up and down the aisles and doesn't want to be in the seatbelt. And so it's a little challenge now to keep him entertained, but we keep the trip short.
He sounds like he's doing well in comparison to some other toddler horror stories I've heard from friends or whatever. But any plans for a number 2, or you think you? No,
it's so crazy. We talk about this often. That's TBD. We still are very much no right now.
Yeah.
Like, I came from a family of 4. There's 4 of us and siblings, and then my husband has 3. So we're just like, can you imagine him being an only child? And it's hard to see that, but at the same time, where we are in our lives, and like, it's really a challenge to have another one. It definitely would need more support for us, and you know, a full-time nanny and care that, you know, would be a different level of support that we would need because it's been a challenge so far. So we can't imagine adding, but we're really excited that Cash is going to be going to school in May, really daycare. But we're finally getting him out of our house. Like we're ready. We are so ready. At first I was like, not my baby. No one's taking my baby. Absolutely not.
Keep him. No.
I've only had nannies. And now I'm like, somebody please take this.
You can have him if you want.
No, and now I really do because of grateful that now flexibility with entrepreneurship, and that I literally took him to art class yesterday, and like, you know, I have these activities with him in quality time. I just have to make sure that we're very scheduled. Like routine is not an option. And that's the only way we can be sane and get things done. But it's great that I can take off in the middle of the day and say, hey, today I'm going to take him to, you know, whatever activities that I want to do and have that quality time, because I know that this time is flying by, as they say, and it is true. And he will be very big soon, and these days will be gone. So I'm trying to cherish them and be grateful for the chaos, the beautiful chaos that we have.
Yeah, well, I'm really proud of you. I imagine you probably, both of you, look at your parents and go, how the F did you do it?
Every day.
With
every
4
day.
and 3. It's like, you know, it's a lot. I know. And then you sort of wonder, okay, it all makes sense now. You know? So, yeah, but congratulations to you on all of your amazing work and the way things are currently evolving for you career-wise. And I can't wait to continue to see how Assembly Line grows. I really believe in that business and believe in you as a female entrepreneur, female fashion entrepreneur and creative. So congrats on everything.
Thank you.
Balancing all the things, little casheroony and, you know, business ownership life. So thank you so much for your time, my love. And hopefully we'll see you really soon.
All right. Thank you.
Unfiltered. Like you're in another world, like you zoned out. You know what I'm saying?